Welcome to Desk Geek. So we have a two-part video here. The first one's going to talk about the hardware, the HTC 10 hardware versus the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus. Why not the 7? Because I don't have the 7 in my hands, and I moved and upgraded from the 6 my wife had and the 6 Plus to the HTC 10. A lot of you who've watched my Linux videos know that I made that decision that I was going to give Android a try, having some compatibility issues with the lockdown iOS operating system, and wanted to see if I could find something comparable. So after much researching, as much as I'd like a Nexus, it was exclusive, of course, only to Verizon, and I'm not going there. So I ended up with the next best thing, which I felt was the HTC 10. Why did I make that decision? A couple reasons. One, I personally have had HTC phones in the past and love them, and they've always been a really good brand. And number two, they've helped a lot of companies, especially during the days when iOS controlled everything and was exclusive to AT&T, when they were coming out with phones that were actually comparable at the time to the iPhone where nobody else was. Samsung, in my opinion, puts too much bloatware. They've had a lot of issues lately. Not saying they're a bad company. I like Samsung stuff as well. I have a lot of things that are Samsung, but wasn't too intrigued with the phones that they had out at the moment. Now, if that Note hadn't had the problem, I probably would have went that direction, because I did love my Note back in the day. So in any case, we're here to talk about the HTC. We're going to do a comparison on kind of the build of the phone first part of the video, and the second video I'm going to talk more about Android versus iOS, which either way, if you're a fanboy of Android or Apple, you're going to get something out of this video, because you're going to find, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek here, that hardware-wise, these phones are very close to one another, and there's almost very little differences anymore between the iPhones and some of the Android brands. But there's a lot of things in Android's operating system that I think personally are an absolute disaster, and we'll get into that in our second part of the video. So if you're easily offended by that, or you're a fanboy, you may not want to tune in to the second video. But let's not take away from HTC here. This is their moment. What you're staring at is the HTC 10. I'm not going to do another unboxing video because there's plenty of those out there. I've used this phone for over 2 weeks, which makes this a lot different than some of the other reviews out there where they're just doing unboxing and saying, oh, this is what I like or not. I've actually gotten to put this through the full use of both on business and personal use and see how this phone competes. So let's talk about specs real quick. You know, the dimensions of the phone: 145.9, 71.9 by 3.0. and the weight at 161. Now the iPhone 6 has very similar dimensions, a little bit smaller, 138.1, 67 by 6.9, but comes in at 129 grams versus the 161. So this phone is a little heavier, and you can feel it. But what's interesting is I always use the 6 Plus, which actually comes in at 172 grams, which means it's heavier than the HTC 10, but I felt like this HTC 10, the moment I held it, was actually heavier than the iPhone. And I think that's interesting. A lot of that has to probably do with weight distribution. This phone feels very heavy in the middle, and that's what you're picking up, I think, when you have the phone. But as far as how the phone looks and feels, I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. So you've got a SIM tray, you've got a SIM card option here, or micro SD card option as well. So that automatically, in my opinion, improves it over any iPhone, where you can expand the memory without having to pay the ridiculous costs for the differences in phones. You've got a nice rocker switch here for your volume. You have a power on and power off, and I like, if you can see that there, that they actually made the grip on the power button different than the grip on the rocker switch, which means when you're not looking, you don't accidentally hit the power button and turn off your phone when you meant to just mess around with the volume. The camera itself is probably one of the most impressive features on this phone, besides potentially the screen itself and the resolution that the screen has. So the camera is 4K. It has RAW capabilities, so you can shoot and film in RAW. It's absolutely beautiful. Does some amazing pictures. It's got a laser focus system on it. And I know that because if you get your hand in front of it accidentally, it'll prompt you immediately. They put the headphone jack on the top and your USB-C connection on the bottom, along with the microphone. And they didn't put the speakers in the front, they put them on the bottom here, speakers here at the top, and it will differentiate or put the sound between the two, so you kind of get a little bit of that 3D sound, which they talk about a lot. And the 3D sound on this phone, or the sound when you compare it to the iPhone 6, again, don't have the iPhone 7, when you compare it to the iPhone 6, the sound is good. It may actually be more clear in some of the vocals and in music, but it's certainly not as loud, and that lack of loudness actually takes away from the good job that they did on those speakers. But where this phone reigns supreme is the incredible amp that they put in here for your headphones. So if you're an audiophile, you've got some nice headphones, expensive pair of headphones, when you plug these in, that HTC boom sound is going to rock your world. I have separate FiO amps that I utilize, usually with my iPhone, which means I've got an amp tethered into the iPhone that's tethered into my headphones that I'm carrying around, and I don't even have to use it anymore. The amp in this phone is that good. And then let's talk about the Quad HD display, 2560 by 1440 with 564 pixels per inch. Now if you compare that to the iPhone 7 even, which only has 326 pixels per inch, or the 1920 by 1080 version that I had at 401 pixels per inch, this phone is giving you a lot more quality display than you were getting from the iPhone. So the screen is beautiful, the sound coming out of the speakers is good, it's comparable to the iPhone. The sound coming out of the amped headphone jack is incredible and makes the phone almost worthwhile there. The screen is more beautiful, but I don't have it to compare against the iPhone 7, so I don't know if it's better than that, but certainly it's far better than iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, and you can see a comparison of the two here, my wife's 6 and the HTC 10, playing a video, and you can see the yellow tint all over kind of the iPhone screen, which they're known for, that kind of yellowish hue, and the bright boldness of the HTC 10 screen there, just to give you a little bit of a feel for the differences there. The Android operating system, since the 2 years I left, has definitely improved, but we'll get into more of that now. But I can say, as far as into another video, but as far as how this phone handles the operating system, it's very snappy. The other thing I want to mention is the fingerprint reader here. It is incredible that the other manufacturers have come up with a fingerprint technology that is just as good and solid as the iPhone. So if you're heavily relying on the fingerprint technology, I can tell you the HTC 10, it absolutely kills it. It's very sensitive. It picks up my fingerprint almost immediately. It knows if I use the wrong finger, so it's not just inaccurate, and it does a very good job there. So that's kind of a view of the hardware. Now we can look at some of the responsiveness here. You can see it's almost immediate how the phone reacts. There is absolutely no lag. This is the HTC Home Sense, which is really the only kind of bloatware that they have on the phone that you can't really get rid of, but it's good. You can customize it for any of the sites or things that you use on a regular basis, and you can see it's just very, very snappy there and how it reacts. As far as gaming and things go on the phone, this processor rocks its world. I've played everything from Bully, which is a Rockstar game that was converted into Android. I think it may be on iOS too, I don't know. But it's a graphically intensive game. There's a lot of things going on the screen, and the HTC handles it like a boss without any problems whatsoever. Web browsing and everything else is fantastic. Of course, there's a lot of issues with Google's messaging system. You can see I have 3 apps for messaging, because who knows which one you're actually supposed to use. I guess it's Allo now, I don't know. But we'll get into that, into the operating system showdown here in another video. But as far as how HTC 10 handles everything, I am very, very impressed with them. So let's show some gaming here, and I can pull up this game, Sniper. In this game, it takes a little bit to load, but it's a pretty graphically intensive game. So everything so far as gaming, I've interfaced it with the DJI Phantom drone. I've interfaced it with Linux, with Windows. Everything has worked flawlessly from that standpoint. So it does a very, very good job. HTC's done a very good job making sure that everything integrates well and seems to work great. The only issues I've had are with stereo systems in the car. Not only does my GMC vehicle, both GMC vehicles, but one has an aftermarket Pioneer radio. Let me turn this down here. Do not seem to be compatible with HTC at all, and this seems to be a problem with them going through USB. So Pioneer radio, you connect it, you get error 16 or error 10, I think it is, and with my GMC, it doesn't recognize it at all. It's a factory radio versus a aftermarket radio. Neither of them interface unless you just go straight through the MP3, and apparently it's an HTC issue, and it's very, very frustrating. Based on the format that they're storing their files in is what I could gather. I haven't done a ton of research on it, but it's a very obnoxious problem, and I'm not sure if the same problem exists on Android across the board. I would assume it doesn't. It seems to be more of an HTC issue. So once we get into the game here and we go to play, you'll see I'll do some zooming in and some zooming out, and you'll see that the phone is very snappy. That quad-core processor does a fantastic job of keeping up. So this phone uses the Corning Gorilla Glass 3 technology, and I've seen a lot of videos about the Gorilla Glass here breaking on drops. Now, I've dropped this phone a couple times. I've not had it shatter yet, but I do use a Poetic case. I prefer the Poetic case over the Spigen, however you pronounce their name, case, which is another popular choice because they actually put a different material over the power button and the volume rocker, whereas the Spigen is the same material where you end up hitting the power button instead of the volume rocker when those buttons are covered by a case. So the Poetic case seems to be the best choice that I've found so far for this phone. But HTC includes something called insurance automatically, which means you get one free screen replacement, which is just amazing. So you can see, as far as this game goes, it's a pretty graphically intensive game. It's very responsive, almost instantaneous. It is instantaneous to my finger, very detailed. Zoom in, zoom out works incredibly well. So you can play any of these high-end games, including Bully. Bully has some slight lag to it, but nothing very noticeable. But I will tell you the HTC phone does heat up some while you are playing that game, probably after the first 10 minutes. But nothing so bad. It doesn't get so hot you feel like it's going to ruin anything. But you can definitely feel the warmth on the back. As far as battery life goes, the phone is very comparable, even though it supposedly has a bigger battery than the iPhone 6, comparable in battery life. There are a lot of energy-saving features, including a extreme energy efficiency mode on the phone. And overall, it does a pretty good job of keeping your battery charged to be able to get through a normal 6 hours day. I don't think you're going to get the full 8-hour work shift out of it unless you're plugging it in between, unless you go into an extreme power saver mode or make sure you turn off a lot of the apps running in the background. But using corporate email, regular email, doing some videos, YouTube, replying to comments and things, it does a good job. I say you get a good 4 to 6 hours depending on your usage of battery on it, and then from there you're going to have to put it on the charger. It's not the best battery life, but okay. So overall, hardware wise on this phone, it's a really great phone for people like me who do video content because of the 4K capabilities of the camera. How well and fast the camera works and operates is incredible. When it takes a picture, and now you can see my ugly mug, look at that. When it takes a picture, it takes it almost immediately. And I'll just show you here. We're on photo. See, it's almost instant. And that is so much faster, that shutter speed, than what I got out of the iPhone. So for somebody doing comment or takes a lot of photos, I think the HTC 10 is brilliant. Hardware-wise, it's every bit as good of an iPhone, and in many cases, a lot better. The screen is brighter, it's more clear. The touchscreen is just as touch-sensitive as the iPhone. It's extremely fast and snappy. Overall, HTC did a brilliant job. Plus, you can upgrade the memory the amp inside with the sound is what really throws it over for this phone. It is a fantastic choice if you're looking for a new cell phone as far as hardware goes. In the next video, I'll talk about the Android operating system, and I won't be giving as much love as I've given in this video. But for HTC, great job on this implementation. I hope the software patches and upgrades keep coming. Last one I received was December 26th. So they seem to have a real regular patching schedule, and this phone is scheduled to get the new Android in. So I'm very excited to try that out when it happens. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you've tried the HTC 10, if you love it, if you've tried other HTC products, if you use a different Android device, why you love it. Of course, if you have the Pixel, you're probably completely in love with that, but I just hate that contract exclusive crap that they pulled with that. But in any case, leave your comments below, and until next time, get out there and fill your brains.
Don't get subscribed. Thumbs up like the video.